this is one of those exciting days, what you don't see very often. We had a Fed announcement yesterday, and it had a huge drop. It was like 240 points in about 2 hours worth of time. And I was shocked. I knew it was going to drop. I'd called that before and actually had said that it was probably going to drop down to like the 6,000 range, and it actually went below that by a couple, like 20 points or so. So that was amazing. I just did not expect it to drop quite that quickly. So that was an eye-opener. Of course, when it drops like that quickly, it's obviously an overreaction on a lot of people's parts. And so it kind of leveled off after the day closed out, and then it started to trickle up midway through the night, which is kind of what I would expect. I would expect to see a response going up because of that overreaction, because that was just way out of line. Also, the fact that it kind of dropped right down to the bottom of the channel, which was the kind of the lower point that I thought it would go to. So that is very interesting. So that also kind of lays out the plan for the day. We can see on the short-term chart that it is now trending up. So we definitely want to be in longs today. We just want to make sure we're getting in at a good place. And looking at this first screen, my first place that I think would be a good place to get in is at this yellow SMA right down here, which is at 59.78. So just kind of analyzing and looking, and I set an alert here so that I wouldn't be tempted to get in too soon. It kind of worked, but it did bounce off of that point, and I got into a long at that first bounce. And as soon as I got into it, I kind of noticed that the MACD hadn't really turned yet. You can kind of see that maybe it's starting to gain upward momentum, but really you have not seen a turn. I want to see a little bit more of a turn usually than that. So yes, I did jump in a little too soon on this trade, and I scrunched it together a little bit here so that I could show you some other levels. And of course it dropped down a little bit further. And since we are, if you look at these numbers, this chart is really condensed. This is 10 points between this half-inch space right here. And so normally that's like maybe 5 points. So little tiny movements are actually huge dollar amounts. And that's a little scary when you're trading, because a drop like this is expected and normal, and it's probably like a $200 loss. And I really believe that it's going to bounce off that point. At the very worst, it'll probably drop down to like the 59.79 level. Nope, that's not right. I can't see where the orange line is, but a little bit below that. So it could drop even further down. I could be at a $400 loss and still not be too worried. I think it's going to get up there. So on the 30-minute chart right here, I drew in a yellow line for the SMA that I see here. And I think that that is a pretty reasonable place for it to get up to in pretty short order today. And that would be, about $700 trade right through there. So I doubt that I'll write it all the way up. I'll probably write it up to the top of this point right here. So anyway, got in and it dropped a little bit further. And sure enough, it came down to that orange line right there, just like I thought it might. The one thing that does concern me a little bit on the 15-minute chart is the MACD right through here. You can see it's touching and turning over. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. The 30-minute chart is just starting to kind of like tip over a little bit, but it's still pretty upward moving. And I went out to the 1 hour and the 4 hour chart just to make sure that I wasn't looking at things improperly. The MACD on the 4 hour chart is definitely looking like it's going to turn up, and we've still got a lot of upward momentum yet on the 1 hour chart as well. Just judging by how far below the purple MACD line there, the average line that it is. All right, so sure enough, it bounced at this point, which is exactly what I would have expected. And look at that, I got almost all those losses back already. And you can see now the MACD is starting to turn a little bit. This is what I should have waited for, and I didn't. But anyway, it turned out okay. So it went up, and I put in an exit order up here. Again, probably won't hold that, but this is kind of where I expect it to go. In some cases, it goes up there really quick, and it will fill in a couple seconds worth of time. So I always like to put that in, just best case scenario, like to plan for the best. All right, so we're probably gonna like hit this orange SMA and stagnate for a little bit until we blow through it. It did, but it didn't take very long, and then it started to go up. And then, of course, I lowered my limit order down to this point right here, the top of the candles that formed that last peak, because that would be a super duper good trade. I lowered it down just a little bit further as it was hesitating just enough going up that I was a little worried, and I had $250 that I'd already made, so that's a really good trade for me. We got 9 seconds before the opening bell. Now, I made a really risky call at this point, but I'll kind of tell you why I did it. So it went up to the same peak that I saw right here. I'm still thinking it's going to get up to this yellow SMA, and you can see there's no red candles on either of these two charts right here, the short-term charts. And we can also see that instead of touching and turning down into a death cross, the MACD has just started to turn up again. And we're going to probably see a scenario kind of like what we see right here. They almost touched and then they went up. So I'm thinking one last little push up is pretty likely at this point. And that yellow line is still a really good point. It could even get up to this blue line, but that's way, way up there. And I did not really want to miss out on that opportunity, which I was pretty sure was going to happen. We had 9 seconds left. I mean, it could happen within 30 seconds after the opening bell. It could get up to that point. That's not a very big stretch for it, as fast as it's been moving and as much as it's been moving. So I placed a limit order, actually a bit below where the price action was when I actually placed the order, and it dropped down to that point and filled. The only thing I don't like to see is this part right here. The MACD looks like it didn't get up very far, and it's starting to show a dark green candle. But we can see over here that at that point it just had a little bit of a drop and then it went up. So it is possible, and it's still pretty low here. It is possible that it will drop a little bit, but I don't think it's going to drop much. Okay, so I'm in a long, and it did drop down there, and then it started to go up again, which is exactly what I would have expected. Everything's looking really good for that. And I went ahead and put my exit order in just a little bit below that yellow line, and it went up there and it filled. And so I got out, and now I've made 2 trades and $512.50. Take out commissions, it's just under $500. So pretty tickled I made that call. I had actually lowered my order just a little bit, it looks like, because I saw this drop coming. Okay, so now the MACD really is looking like it probably will drop, and probably drop, a decent ways. So I don't want to be in the market right now because I still want to trade at the trend and be in a long. This is definitely short weather here. Okay, it didn't go down very far. It went up, broke through that yellow line, which I had set up there, and now we're sitting in a resistance level. And I'm not sure what it's doing right now. So I'm just watching and waiting, trying to decide if I even want to make another trade again. I feel like the only time I should really make a trade is when I know what it's doing, and it's only 9:36. So I feel like there is the opportunity, because time, I'm not looking at dollar amounts. I just want to look at the trade. If I can make a good trade, if I know what it's doing, I don't see any reason, if I'm not past my time frame of 10 o'clock where I want to stop, I don't see any reason not to make another trade, even though I've made a considerable amount of money already. Just want to make sure that I make a good trade. I want to get in at a good point. So still watching it. Okay, there's the big drop. I called. I was a little surprised at how far it did go down, but it did go down a long ways. We can kind of see it almost went down to the bottom of that previous candle on the 5-minute chart here, which I've pulled down to kind of see what the 5-minute chart was going to say. And started to show a bounce at that point. So it's like, okay, it might be bouncing right there. We are seeing the MACD kind of starting to turn a little bit. The 15-minute chart's a little bit iffy. And we did reach that yellow line. So it's possible it won't get above that point anymore. I don't know. We're still looking at that blue SMA way out here. But I don't know if it's got enough juice to do that or not. So still kind of watching it. Okay, when we saw a definite breakthrough that red SMA there, and it looks really good here on the MACD, I went ahead and threw in a long order, got filled, and I'm not expecting a lot here. I put in my exit order at that orange SMA right there. So that is not it's not a big movement, but it's a lot of money just because remember I said it's really condensed right now, this chart. And so it went up and filled, and I made a third trade, got done by 9:39, and the third trade was $112. So I made 3 positive trades today and very happy with that. And then I stopped because I was not sure what the next move was going to be. So anyway, that was my day.